Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's event. I'm Sue Chaffee, Assistant Dean of Advancement for the Alberta School of Business, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's discussion, Rising from Failure, in conversation with Trevor Harris and Greg Ellingson. We acknowledge that the University of Alberta is located on Treaty 6 territory and respect the histories, languages, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all First Peoples of Canada, whose presence continues to enrich our vibrant community. Before we introduce you to our guest, I want to thank Syncrude, today's presenting sponsor, for making our event possible. Syncrude has been a proud supporter of the University of Alberta since 1980. We are happy to see that we've got a great turnout for what I promise will be a great discussion. Before we get to the discussion, I'd like to introduce you to Sadhna Matrani, one of our fourth year Bachelor of Commerce students, to cover some brief housekeeping items.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Sue, for the introduction. So I'm Sadhna. As Sue just mentioned, I'm a fourth year Bachelor of Commerce student. I'm super excited to be here and to be supporting this wonderful event. So we are going to be closing the chat now, but we'd like to invite you to submit your questions in the Q&A function at the bottom, and you should see it in your Zoom taskbar. So there will be time towards the end for us to kind of go through your questions. Well, not me specifically, but obviously Greg and Trevor to go through and answer your questions. So if you do have any burning questions for either one of them, please just submit them in the Q&A box. So to get us all warmed up and hear a bit from you as well, we do have a few poll questions. So when the questions appear on your screen, you'll have about 20 seconds to answer. So the first question, I will just wait till it pops up. But one of our first questions, we just kind of want to ask to see if you are missing the CFL and attending in-person football games. So I'll give you guys about 20 seconds to go in and input your responses, and then we'll kind of see what everyone has to say. I'm hoping most of you say yes. I personally have struggled to understand football, but I really do wish I understood it a bit more. But going to games, any sporting games are always a lot of fun. So hopefully you all click yes. So yeah, I think the poll is closed now, and amazing. Glad to see that most of you did say yes. So almost 80% of you. So I'm glad to see that. Awesome. So the next question is, and this will be a little bit more tailored to the conversation today, but have you ever experienced a failure or a major setback? I think this is also one that, for the most part, I think all of us have probably experienced something that perhaps, we didn't really intend on experiencing and we didn't necessarily see it coming, but it's definitely a big part of life and definitely a big area where, you learn how to grow and change things. So yeah. Okay, awesome. So yes, as I predicted, 99% of us have kind of experienced this. So definitely it'll be a good way to set the stage for today's conversation. And then the last question is, of the pillars of resilience, which one do you personally think is the most important? So we do have a couple of options. I'm interested to see what all of you have to say for this one. I think all of these are definitely quite important in their own way. So yeah, we'll give it another 10 seconds or so, and then I'll share the responses with all of you. Awesome. Great. Okay. Emotional well-being, I think that's definitely a really good component, and a really big component of it is being able to, sort of overcome some of those areas where you think you failed or some of those setbacks. So I think emotional well-being is also a really big one. Some of the other ones that I'm seeing are inner drive and relationships, also really important ones for sure. So thank you all of you for sharing your responses and participating. So we will now get into it. I will pass it back on to Sue to continue on with our event. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Sadhna. Today's discussion will be moderated by the Vice Dean of the Alberta School of Business, Dr. Kyle Murray. On July 1st, Kyle will actually become our Dean of the school. Kyle is a respected behavioral scientist, holds a PhD in marketing and psychology, and has worked as a consultant for both government and Fortune 500 companies, advising on a range of industries from financial services to retail and advertising to cannabis. Please welcome Dr. Kyle Murray.
Thank you, Sue. I'm, of course, very happy to be here, and hello to everyone. This is, I think, a discussion that we can all look forward to. I feel like I'm in for a real treat today. We have two superstars from the Canadian Football League's Edmonton football team with us to talk about failure and resilience, and I can't wait to hear what they have to say. Trevor Harris is the quarterback for the Edmonton football team. He signed with the club in 2019, often regarded around the league as the ultimate team player. Harris, the year we signed him, was named the most outstanding player, and during the regular season, he ran for 6 touchdowns, and although he was injured, also threw for over 4,000 yards for the 4th time in his career. Our other guest is Greg Ellingson. Greg is a wide receiver with the Edmonton football team, often in the conversation as being the best receiver in the CFL. He's coming off 5 straight 1,000-yard plus seasons, finished 6th overall in 2019, and in the top 5 in receptions, and was named a West Division All-Star. So please welcome Trevor Harris and Greg Ellingson. I'll get both of you to turn on your cameras and mics at this point. All right, Greg, are you there?
Yes, it says
yeah, it's not letting us turn on our video. The host says the host has to do it.
Okay, we'll get our host to turn you on. There we go. Now we can see you. And Greg, you are in, where are you
Tampa,
at right
Florida.
now? Tampa, Florida, right? The home of the Toronto Raptors.
That's
and
right.
Trevor, where are you at?
I'm away on a trip right now. I'm in Foxborough, Massachusetts, but heading back home to Ohio tomorrow.
Oh yeah, there's another quarterback out in that direction that some people talk about sometimes, right?
Yeah, he played 20 years here. Yeah,
that's the guy. That's okay. So we're going to talk about a lot of different things. I thought we'd open up with something fairly general, and it kind of comes from something that popped up on Instagram last week when Dwayne, The Rock, as most people know him, Johnson, posted that he'd been cut from the CFL, and a lot of people have heard that story. He was cut from the CFL, changed kind of his path in life, but he feels like it set him down the path to success that he's got to today. And I wonder if both of you can tell us a little bit about something that you failed at, how you handled it. And maybe Trevor, you could start us off.
Yeah, I think as you saw by the poll question, 99% of the people just listening today have had a failure or a major setback. And I think Greg, myself, and I think you probably, and Sanda and everybody that has spoken today is probably in the same boat there. And I think that, like you said, it's about how you deal with it and how you frame it. For instance, when I was released in the NFL, and again, first world problem, just one of the first things that came to my mind, because I'm here as a football player, and so I want to talk about my experiences in that. Is I was released in the NFL, and it was a difficult moment because I went to a small school in high school and a small school in college, and went to the NFL, and I'd always just been good. And you got released it, and I was like, wait, what do you mean you don't want me here? And so it was a hit to my humility, and it was a time for me to kind of just sit back, reflect, and say, okay, why did you get cut? What happened? And what do I need to become to be the person that I need to be? And I'm sure everybody's heard the old adage of, life is 10% what happens to you, 90% how you deal with it. And I think that anything that happens to you it's about how you respond. And the best way I like to verbalize that is a phrase that I read about in a book. It's E plus R equals O. And the formula is basically the event, which is the E, plus the R, which is your response, equals the next outcome. And the cool thing about it is you don't know what the event is going to be. You can't control what the event is going to be, and you can't control really what the outcome is. And so the only thing that you can control is the R factor. And so a lot of times I write R factor, like on my shoe, because if I throw an interception, it's about how I respond. What happens then, it's really not about that. It's about how you respond. And so any difficult thing you go through, you have a choice of how you respond, and that's your attitude. And the challenge of it is you don't really want to choose comfort or familiar. You want to choose an effective response and ask yourself, like, why did this happen? And you just really want to avoid blaming other people and just asking yourself how you can improve. And so I think R factor, to me, that E plus R equals O, is something that's always really spoke to me.
That's great. I like that a lot. The R factor. I might start using that myself. Great idea.
Yeah.
Greg, I mean, you have to be part of the 99% as well. Actually, when I saw that poll, I'm a little surprised 1%. There's somebody out there who's never had a failure yet, so good for them.
gotta
But
figure out their
if you're like
secret.
the rest of us,
Must be an infant.
yeah, it must be even then, you're not walking yet. So, but anyway, so Greg, how about you? What's your experience with failure been like?
Yeah, I mean, especially in the football world, there's so many to choose from. I wasn't really sure where to go with that one, but I guess as it pertains to the CFL, one that I can really think of that was getting over the hump and really kind of like a phoenix rising from the ashes, because that's that response that you need. Is you really need to take your problem and face it forward, put it in front of you and attack it. And I think my second year in Hamilton, after having like an outstanding rookie year where I was on pace to have 1,000 yards, be rookie of the year, I got injured and missed 6 games towards the end of the year. Then the next year played a little bit and they stopped playing me and benched me. And that was one of those times in my life where I was like, okay, I've worked this hard. I've been cut from the NFL. I'm now on the verge of possibly getting cut from the CFL. How am I going to attack this? What's my mentality going to be? So I could have sat there and I could have felt sorry for myself and complained every day. And, I should be in here. I should be playing. But I was talking to one of the vet guys, Andy Fantuz and Dave Stala, I'm sure great guys in the CFL. They sat down and talked to me and they just said, keep going, man. Keep chugging along. Your attitude right now is what you're going to be remembered by. And it's going to determine whether you're going to play again. So I hunkered down and I told myself I'm going to give my best every single day against those first team defenders, even though I wasn't playing anymore, and give my best and make that team as great as it can be without me getting onto the football field. So I was with that adversity and I had to change my mindset of what I was going to do. So I just kept doing that attack every day. And in the meantime, I was making myself better. I wasn't getting on the football field because I wasn't playing at that time, my second year, but I was making myself better every single day because I was treating every single rep in practice like it was a game rep. And then eventually that transferred to getting the opportunity next year when I went to Ottawa and rejoined Henry Burris, who was with Hamilton then. And I got the chance to get on the field again. And then all that preparation I put in the year before when I wasn't playing translated to the football field. So even though I didn't get that opportunity right away, I was preparing for the opportunity when it did come.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's one of those things where, we don't often talk about it, but that the difference between that being the end of your football career professionally and you becoming a perennial all-star was really just making that mindset switch and not giving up and just keeping at it. And it's easy to see the outcome. It's easy to see the people picking up the trophies, but it's those little things. And we kind of were joking a little about Tom Brady earlier. It makes me think of that, low draft pick, if I remember correctly, and started as a backup. Nobody really knew who he was. Injury got him on the field, and everybody knows the story now. So yeah, that's a great place for us to start. Okay, well let's move on to some other topics. One that I wanted to ask you about, Trevor, because you post a lot about self-mastery. How important is it to have that ability and to make sure that you have the right attitude when things do get tough or overwhelming?
Yeah, that's a great question. And self-mastery is something that's always spoke to me. And I think probably over the last 4 or 5 years, because I think that you'll never really truly become and I guess be the person that you want to be until you can master yourself. And once you can master yourself, then you can respond properly to anything that happens to you. You can grow from anything that happens to you. You can use a positive attitude. And the way I like to frame what attitude is attitude is literally just the lens through which you see the world. And so if you're faced with a problem that your car doesn't start, it's okay, I'm going to be late. I'm going to do this, or am I going to go get this fixed? Am I going to be proactive and, make sure this doesn't happen again or whatever it would be? And so I think the biggest handicap we can have in this world is a bad attitude. And I went to one of the top 10 handicap schools in the country when I was in college, and I lived on the first floor, and my next door neighbor, I guess, in my dorm room, he had a wheelchair, and I had a bad spring day practice one day. And I was, he wheeled over to my room and knocked on the door, and I was like, "What's up?" And he's like, "What's wrong, man?" I was like, "Nothing, man. I'm just had a bad day. Just, you wouldn't get it." He goes, and he kind of just inched toward me a little bit. He goes, "Can't be that bad, man." He's like, "What happened?" And I looked at him and I was like, "You know what?" And he just kind of told me that. He's like, "The worst handicap you can have," he's like, "it's not being in this wheelchair. It's when having a bad attitude." And that was kind of a changing moment for me, that kind of, I just started to try and frame things and have good perspective and shape my mentality to to be able to succeed in my activities and be able to handle things with great action and moving forward. And like we kind of talked about earlier, I think attitude and R factor kind of go hand in hand, because you choose that. You choose your attitude, and you choose your effort, and you choose your response to everything. So I think those are some really good things that kind of stick out to me on that.
Yeah, again, great points. You might have a career as a motivational speaker, or maybe you should write this down in a book afterwards. I think that's those are some fantastic ideas. I mean, I guess you don't get to be where you are without working some of this stuff out, but that's super useful. Greg, anything to add on the kind of self-mastery side?
Yeah, I mean, definitely your attitude is a huge part of it. But I think when I was younger and I was first getting into the, really chasing my passion, which was football, this is what I want to be around. I want to make sure I love it, is adapting change too. I mean, I went from getting cut by an NFL team to driving to New Orleans. Actually, at first I drove to a park in Orlando to try out for a coach that was coaching a New Orleans arena football team. He signed me on the spot after he was the coach throwing to me. And then I just drove to New Orleans to play. Then I got to try out with the Bucks. They flew me down, and then I drove back from New Orleans to Tampa, where I'm from. So adapting changed. I had to be ready to just get up and move at any opportunity. I didn't have anything holding me down, and you kind of have to just, go with the flow and embrace those things. And then from there, being in Tampa, playing for the arena football team here after I played for the Bucks for a little bit, I had an opportunity to go to the CFL. And that was another big change. I didn't even have a passport at the time. And, they told me I had about a week if I wanted to make camp and try out for a spot, so I just got all my stuff together. I think my social security card was misplaced, or maybe got ruined in a leak of the roof at my mom's house. So I had to go scramble and get everything done, just because I knew that I wanted it so badly. I wasn't going to let anything stop me from getting where I wanted to go. And knowing that change is inevitable, I just had to embrace that, and just no matter what it took, I had to make sure I could get there.
Good. So when you're talking about change and moving and adaptation, and you're an Edmonton football team player, I have to wonder, what was it like the first time you played in late October, November, in the freezing cold and snow?
Man, same thing, kind of. The very first experience was when I was in Hamilton the first year, and we played in Saskatchewan against Saskatchewan with their home crowd, and it was, I think, leading up to the game, it was like negative 27 degrees, which a Florida guy like myself, the only thing like that around here is a gust of wind that comes off the Gulf. But I think 4 or 5 guys also had frostbite on their hands, so I'm in there like trying to figure out ways to stay warm and asking guys like, what do you do when it gets this cold? And they give you some tricks like putting Vaseline on your body to close your pores. But that kind of goes with just you can be a great leader by also following, right? So if you do the right things, and you take advice from guys ahead of you, and you find a mentor that can really trickle down some pieces of advice. And now to this day, every time I see a younger guy come in and gets one of those cold games, I just tell him, hey, get some Vaseline, get some Tiger Balm, close those pores up, because that's what the guys taught me. And now I can lead by example from, guys that I learned from before.
That's great. That I still imagine the ball must feel pretty hard when you catch it, when Trevor's slinging it at you and you're grabbing it in minus 27.
Yeah, after your fingers go numb, you can't really feel anything though. So you just on your hands up there in the spot they're supposed to go, and hopefully it sticks, How
about you, Trevor? How do you find that? You're a little bit more of a northern guy in the U.S. anyway, but how'd you find the cold when you first got up here?
It really wasn't too much different playing in Toronto. And I went to school in at Edinburgh, which is it's in the snow belt right by Lake Erie. And so we'd get that lake effect snow, but the temperature was always a little bit different. And to me, it's really just a mindset thing. And if you prepare yourself for those things, kind of Greg talked about preparation. He had been prepared for that moment his whole life, just because he was so driven for what he was trying to do. And to me, football is something that challenges me mentally, emotionally, physically, asks me to be a part of something bigger than myself. And I love the game for that. I truly do love the game, like with all I have. And I know that comes with sacrifice. And again, first world problems, playing in cold weather for money, obviously. So, but I love the game that much. And I know that sacrifice is something that's worth it. And as soon as I get in that mindset, if it's minus 10, if it's positive 30, if it's 80 and you're sweating and you're uncomfortable, it's really just a part of the process. And to me, it's just kind of just chipping away at what you're not good at, and the bad parts of yourself, and just becoming who you want to be.
I think you just hit on that mental fortitude thing. I think that's part of it too, is when it comes to football and when you're viewing things as a competitor and you see someone like across from you and you're dealing with harsh, climate, whether it's cold or whether it's hot, and you see somebody breaking down and you have that mental fortitude where you can stay stronger and they could look at you and you almost defeat them with just a look, going out with no sleeves when it's negative 20 degrees out, just to show you're tough, but that works with business too. You could be going through a bunch of problems. You could fail and fail and fail it over again. You look at someone's posture and their demeanor, and they come in and their chest is still up. They're still proud of what they're doing because they love what they're doing. And they know that one day they're going to break through. I mean, that itself, just, having that demeanor and that focus, I think, is really what breaks people down and makes them successful.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's really good. So, I mean, we're talking about kind of failure, and of course, as professional athletes who fail, I mean, we said everybody fails. But the other thing we have to deal with often is just criticism, negative criticism for, not having performed up to our abilities, or, maybe we bit off more than we could chew, or things just didn't go our way at some point. And I often think about professional athletes when watching you guys on TV, and I'm like, when I fail, it tends to be fairly private. At most, maybe a few hundred people are going to know about it. You guys fail in front of tens of thousands of people, then reporters ask you questions, and then social media jumps all over you. So how do you deal with all that kind of intense negative criticism?
Go ahead, Greg.
I can, either one.
Oh yeah, I can go first. I think the way I view it is criticism is criticism, and whether you take it positively or negatively is just kind of how you view it. I feel like when I get criticized, the first thing I do is I kind of see what it is and what they say, and is it true? Like, is what that person's saying have any validity, and can I be better? Like, is it a criticism that they're maybe right about? And then I can go back and I can say, you know what, this person was right, and I should probably evaluate myself, and maybe I could attack it differently and I can get better. But I think it does boil down to, to yourself and the people around you for sure. And I know Trevor will hit on this, but when these people criticize you, is it true? And if it's true, then maybe you need to fix something. And if it's not, then you need to be proud of yourself, because there's plenty of people that say something, but they don't really know what goes down and what's right or what's wrong. Like Trevor, for example, get criticized about, maybe a pass was a little bit off, maybe it was too far, maybe it was too short. But does that person that's criticizing him know that he had 5-man protection? There's a 6th guy that came off the edge, and the running back went out for a route instead of getting that block, and he had to get rid of the ball a little bit sooner. Did the receiver's route go a little bit deeper than it was supposed to? Was it a little bit too short? Is that why the ball was behind him or in front of him? There's so many things that people don't know. And it's not just with football, it's with everything in life. People are going to criticize you, but they only on the outside looking in. They don't really know. The only person that really knows is you and the people that are immediately close around you. And those are the people that you really need to care about their opinions.
Yeah, and for me, what Greg just hit on toward the end is really kind of the caveat for me, is that whose opinion truly matters. And to me, it's my family, it's my close friends, it's my teammates, it's my mentors. And aside from that, you have to really take other people's opinions with a grain of salt, especially when you're getting criticism, because those are things that can really affect you. They can affect your mental health. And the problem, I think, is we've been conditioned as athletes, as regular people, as business associates, as students, whatever. We've been conditioned since we've been young to find the negative. And, if we ever have a 94% on a test and we miss 2 questions, what's the first thing we do? We go find the 2 questions that we missed. And so we're conditioned to go look for the negative, because that's what we'll see is at the end, it'll be, 100 comments and only 2 negative comments. And we go look at the negative comments, and that makes it tough because you're searching for that negative. And so you have to really think about what those people do. And more often than not, I can promise you what those people do is they see a post, Trevor Harris stinks, he should retire, send. And then they go to the next post and they're like, what negative could I say about this guy? Send. And so you have to really take it with a grain of salt, because that's likely what they do. And those people typically have a problem themselves. And so just be careful the stock you take in the people's opinions of yourself, because it's likely they're not going to bed thinking about how awful of a person or football player or whatever it is that you are. They're just spreading negativity themselves. So you just have to be able to really compartmentalize and take in the opinions of the people that truly love you.
Yeah, I think that's good advice generally, not just for football or athletics, but just in general to focus on those people whose opinions you really do care about and you do have a lot of faith in. It makes me wonder though, as you guys are talking, do you look at social media? Do you follow that kind of thing during the season, or do you ignore it?
I think a lot of people say they ignore it. I think even if you do take social media away, I've taken social media off my phone. It's only on my iPad. So I only have access to it once a day. And I do that by design because it's become a really toxic platform. And so I try and just stay away from it as much as I can. But even if you're not on social media, you'll hear the criticism from reporters, from teammates, from fans when you're walking by, whatever it may be. So it's hard to hide from it. But at the same time, I'm never hiding or ducking criticism. I don't mind it. It's just I always just careful, like I said, of the stock that I take of what people are saying and who they are.
I mean, I look at it a little bit, I guess. I feel like more so the positive stuff, though, kind of like we hit on, is I look at it once and be like, if it's a cool play, like, oh, it's cool that I did that. And then next, when somebody's, criticizing me, saying something bad, I kind of use that as motivation and a chip on my shoulder where I'm like, oh, okay, this person isn't with me yet. This person doesn't believe in me yet. Well, I mean, I know one person that's always going to believe in me, and that's me. So I'm going to go out here. I'm going to prove to them and to everybody else that still doesn't believe in me that, I could still overcome and, still, reach heights that maybe they can't believe in.
Yeah, I like it. And again, we saw 99% of people experience failure. You guys do it on a big stage, so it's. But these are strategies everyone can use to make sure they deal with criticism that we all get in a fairly reasonable way, and don't let it affect their mental health too much. And so, sort of related to that, there's lots of stuff going on in the world. I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and who knows what's going on with professional sports seasons, and there's talk these days about the XFL and the CFL. And how do you guys stay focused on your goals? Right, we start with Trevor this time. Or yeah.
Greg, go ahead.
Throwing it back and forth.
Hear you.
Go ahead, Greg.
Oh, focus on my goals. Okay, well, it is a weird time right now. Definitely with not having a season last year, that's definitely something that's tough. And for me, not having the season last year and then going to this year with the uncertainty that's still there, I like to set myself goals that kind of mimic and mirror what my professional capacity is going to be. So how can I prepare myself to be on the football field, even though football is not around? So when it comes to that, I'd set goals for myself, for example, physically. I had never ran 100 miles before. I'd never run more than 4 miles in a day before. I'd never run more than maybe 20 miles a whole month. So last year, once they canceled the season, I told myself I wanted to do something that physically and mentally was going to challenge me and make me kind of strive for something I've never done before. So I'm going to say, all right, 100 miles a month is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure I get this goal. And for me, when I attack my goals, I break things down. So the first thing I do is, Trevor and I talk about this all the time, is habit stacking, which I learned from, it's a book called Atomic Habits. If someone wants to pick it up, by James Clear. It's a great tool to use and put in your repertoire for learning new things and kind of how to, I guess I can run into go into it if people don't know what it is, but habit stacking basically, for example, running. I want to be a better runner. I want to run 100 miles. I'm going to habit stack by taking a pair of shoes. I'm going to put them right next to my coffee machine in the kitchen so that every morning when I go make that cup of coffee that I'm used to making in the morning, my shoes are right there to remind me, hey, you need to get your ass out there and you need to go run. So every day I'll do that, get up, and that was at least 3 miles a day. So I break it down. After my habit stacking, my reminder of my shoes that are there, I'm breaking it down. How many miles do I have to run a day to get to my 100 miles for that month? So it's 3. So at that point, as I'm setting my goals to run these 100 miles, I have my shoes to remind me. I'm telling myself every day I need to get out there and I need to run at least 3 miles. If I'm feeling good about that day, I run a little bit more. If I'm hurting a little bit, making sure I'm taking care of my physical being and my mental health, I run a little bit less, but I know that my average needs to be 3 miles. And then I always set markers. My halfway point is 50, and that's about 15 days into the month. 75 miles is about 3/4 of the way into the month. And then by the end, it might not make a difference at the time as you're doing it, but by the end of it, all those miles stack up and those goals are achieved.
For me, I just know that kind of like just to piggyback off of what Greg said, and I think that we both kind of are going to hit on the same thing here, is everything I do shapes who I am. And so my habits are going to end up determining who I am. And I think that it's less about what I end up accomplishing, but who I'm becoming in the process. And I think that's a big thing of who you're becoming in a process. And so I have a whiteboard of daily tasks, and it's, filled with, brain training and physical training and pliability training. And there's maybe 15 things on there, and I check them off every day. Kind of like how Greg said he does mentally, is, he checks things off and, has those checkpoints that he gets to. And for me, that's a way for me to hold myself accountable. And like I said before, it's just not necessarily what you're doing, but who you're becoming. And I don't know if I can accentuate that enough, because everybody has goals for what they want to look like in 5 years, 10 years. And for you to accomplish those goals, you have to become the person that is able to become that. And so, you have to become the person that you need to be to accomplish what you want. So first, it's becoming that person. So what daily tasks, what habits do you need to have to become that person? And so I ask myself that question every off season, and every quarter of the year I try and reframe my goals, and I do that. And then the other question that I think is crucial for you to ask yourself is, who are my 5 friends that I spend the most time with? And that's critical, because if you take those 5 people that you hang around with the most, you're likely the average of those 5 people. So if you're hanging around people that are lazy, that are not goal oriented, that sit on their couch and listen to or watch certain things, or listen to certain music that you don't want to be, then you've just got to be careful and conscious of that. And so just make sure that you're around the people that are goal oriented, that are like-minded as you, that want to become the same as you. And also you want to make sure that you're becoming that person in the process. And just like Greg had talked about, him and I collaborate a lot with, he told me about that book, Atomic Habits. So him and I collaborated, we talked about it. I read the same book, and we were able to kind of hold each other accountable through like habit stacking and setting goals and having good habits.
Nice. I put it on my list. That sounds like a book worth reading. It's interesting as I'm listening to you both. Obviously you're high level athletes and you've been very successful. People talk a lot about the mental side of the game, but this has really given me some insight into just how rigorously you approach making sure your mental game is strong. And it's not kind of random or just things you do on the side, but you have a real plan that you've put in place on how you can achieve some of these goals. And I think that's probably very valuable for a lot of people in our audience. The other thing that comes up, especially we're a year now into the pandemic, and not everybody's feeling okay all the time, right? So it's great when you can kind of achieve those things. You can put these things into place. You can work towards your goals in a structured way. We also know it's okay not to be okay. Not everyone is all the time. And what kind of advice would you give to people that find themselves in that situation? Maybe start with Trevor this time. You've been throwing to Greg and he's been catching, but I'll let you start this one off.
I'm used to it. Greg catches everything, so easy for me. And like you just hit on just a second ago, you said it's okay to not be okay. And I know that's said quite a bit. And I think it actually, in times like this, it's actually time to take it a step further and say that it's normal to not be okay. And it's a positive thing that even if you think you're okay, to check in on your mental health. And there's resources online. There's mental performance coaches. There's people that are professionals at this thing that take care of that. And I work with a mental performance coach myself, and her name's Dr. Chantel Lussier out of Montreal or out of Quebec. And she worked with the Red Blacks in 2018. And I've kind of latched onto that to make sure that I continue checking in on my mental health. And it's huge. And so I would just urge anybody out there that even if you think you're okay, to check in with other people, to have a network of friends that you trust and that you're able to kind of talk to. And for me, I use meditation and prayer. I'm a Christian, and I make sure that I keep my prayer life in check, and I meditate a lot to kind of just be still and keep my mind still. And like I said, I just want to make sure that everybody realizes it's more than just okay to not be okay. It's normal, and especially in times like this. So just make sure that you're staying on top of that. And the other strategy that I think is huge is serving others, and doing things to make other people feel good about themselves is going to bring more purpose to your life. And I think that if you have any sort of profession where you're serving other people and helping other people, I think those are the people that end up being the most fulfilled and purpose-driven people.
That's great. I think that's such an important message, Trevor. We see you on TV, we see you in the stadium, we see you as, a professional quarterback, right? Why would you ever need to check in on your mental health? You're living the dream. And I think there's a lot of people who feel like even if they need that help, it's not something that they should do. It's not something that people do. And it's great to hear that even really successful people like yourself are making it part of the regular habits. So I think that's an important message. Thank you. Greg, what do you have to add?
You hit on a lot of good stuff right there. I think definitely with the not having football last year, I think it was a time that, I had to look in the mirror as a football player and as that being my passion and a love, and, kind of having that ripped away from us, just because of the global pandemic, kind of, needed to take stuff together and be like, all right, am I okay? And like, how can I get through this? And what avenues do I have to get through such a tough time? And one of those ways that, Trevor actually recommended a book to me as well called 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma. And that one did wonders for me too. Just something as simple that I got from that is keeping a journal. And it's something that, I kind of looked at in the past, that was when people tell you, read books and go exercise and get down in nature and journal. I was like, what kind of witchcraft is this? I'm good, I'm strong, I can handle myself, I don't need all this extra stuff. But with the pandemic and, all the extra free time, I was like, you know what? Let me take this time to like really work on myself and see how good I can actually be. Let's see how far my human potential is, and let's see how far I can be and how good I can be. So that was one of the things I took from it, was journaling. So I started like almost every morning, at least 5 days a week, write some passages, how I'm feeling, what I'm doing. And one thing it really helped with is going back and reading earlier passages and seeing, keeping yourself accountable about things that you're saying that you were going to do. Like, am I doing those things? The person that I wanted to become, am I on track to becoming that person? Certain ways I was feeling, am I doing the same things that was making me feel this way? And what did I tell myself I needed to do to get out of that feeling? And am I doing it? It's definitely a way that was helpful for me. And aside from that, just those simple things that I take for granted because I do it all the time, is just working out. And that's just one thing that I like to do even when I don't have a workout day that's scheduled, is just getting outside, whether it's taking my dog out and going for a little jog and getting him sweating, or going on a kayak or canoe and taking him with me, just getting out in nature and just really humbling yourself and checking in with yourself and being mindful and telling yourself, that it's not always about me and my success. Also, it's, about me being a positive person and checking in on my mental health and grounding yourself and making sure that, where you're supposed to be and you're present at that moment.
That's great. That's some really concrete steps as well on how you can make sure you're checking in with yourself and moving in the right direction. I saw one of the questions pop up from our audience, since you mentioned your dog. His name's Odin, is that correct?
Yeah, Odin's
somebody wanted to know about Odin.
He's outside the door, he's crying.
What kind of dog is Odin?
He's a Great Dane Mastiff.
Oh, okay, so he's
when we're finished up here, I'll bring him back in.
All right. Sounds good. Okay, well, yeah, let me take a few questions from our audience and people that are watching the Zoom webinar. And I'll start with the first one. It's probably, it's in the media right now, and it's one of the things that probably a lot of people are wondering about, which is, what do you guys think about this sort of vague but potential connection or link between the CFL and the XFL?
I had two reactions. I can go first, I guess. My first reaction is, I love the CFL. I've made it my home for the past 7 years. It should have been 8, but hopefully we play this year and it'll be my 8th year. That's most of my adulthood I've spent in Canada. So I feel like I'm an honorary Canadian, and, I want anything that can, to keep the CFL alive and keep guys playing and give the younger generation opportunity to follow their dreams just like I have. I want that to happen any way it can. And then on the other side of it, I'm just like, man, the CFL is so unique and I love it for what it is. Like, I don't want it to change. I just want it to thrive. But, with everything, there's black and white and there's always a gray area. So something that's going to make the league thrive and be successful and grow and also keep its main roots, the truth is somewhere in the middle. And I hope we find that.
That's good. I would say
Uh,
when you get to the point that you're rubbing Vaseline on yourself and wearing short sleeve shirts to go out in minus 27,
It's
you're
gotta
probably
be.
a Canadian.
It's
You're a
gotta be.
Canadian at that point.
Thank you.
Sorry, Trevor, you were going to say something.
For me, it's just my focus has been on the now. Selfishly, is what's going to happen with 2021. I know we want to play ball. I know there's a lot of Canadians that want to play ball this year, and I hope that nothing interferes with that. But aside from that, anything that we can do to grow this league and keep this league going would be tremendous. I don't know what it would look like if they go from 3 to 4 downs or keep it at 3 downs. I know there's a lot of traditions in the CFL that make the game unique, and I think we played football professionally before the NFL. So, and I say we because I feel like I'm an honorary Canadian too. But I just anything that can grow the game. Obviously, it's going to be tough and dicey situations. It just really stinks that this pandemic has kind of caused this whole thing. But obviously, if this could grow the league, maybe it's going to be a great thing. So, just got to frame our mind and have a good attitude about it, like we've been talking about today.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Well, I know, I mean, I think as you saw in the poll earlier, all of us, or the vast majority of us, are excited to see football come back. So we're all looking forward to hearing the announcement of when things are going to get started up again. Here's an interesting question. I think it's something that a lot of us do kind of wonder about is, oh, I just moved a little bit. How do you balance remembering and learning from the past, without letting that history weigh you down? So kind of learning from mistakes and things that have been difficult in the past without letting it kind of weigh you down and hold you back.
Yeah, and to me, that's just about the way you frame things. And getting released in the NFL or failing a test, remembering those things to push you to remind you of what you don't want to be are good reminders for me. Because when I think about my time in the NFL, I was maybe a tad selfish. I wasn't ready quite professionally, and I had still a lot to learn to become the person that I wanted to be. And that's kind of just like kind of a silly metaphor is, your rear view mirror in your car is to remind you what you is not in terms for driving, because obviously it's good to see in the rear view mirror, but it's a good reminder of what you looked like in the past. But your windshield is a great reminder of how big your future can be. So that's your broad vision for your future and a small vision for the past of maybe what you didn't want to be, but what you're becoming, and just having that great vision for the future.
Nice. Greg, any thoughts on that as well?
Oh man, sorry, I was just reading this other question that was here too, and it's kind of similar. So I was just trying to prepare for that. What was the last question again?
Yeah. No. So, well, are you thinking about the responding to failure?
Yes, I was reading.
Yeah. So that was my next question anyway. So let's go to that one, because yeah, I think, one of the things about failing, and I think, I think about this as both of you, if you've thrown a couple of bad passes in a row or you've dropped a couple of balls, how do you keep that failure from not kind of stacking up and making you maybe shy away from the next challenge or hesitate a little when it's time to take action again?
Yeah, I mean, that immediately makes me think of the time from coming out of college and going to the Jaguars, the NFL, getting cut, and then going to New Orleans, playing for arena football team, getting signed by the Bucks, and then getting cut from them, and then playing arena football again. And at that point in my life, I'm sitting there with all these failures, getting cut over and over again, and then chasing my dreams to play in a bigger league, and which was the NFL at the time. And do I keep doing this to myself? Like, do I keep failing? Do I keep, working towards a goal that I really want just to be cut down again? And at that point, I mean, I feel like everybody was giving up on me. My people around me that were close to me were like, you sure you want to keep playing football? Like, do you want to move on to something else? Right. My agent had stopped responding to me. I hadn't talked to him in like 6 months. And it's kind of funny, the way the contracts are set up is like, you're with the agent for 2 years. And if I had cut him and gone with a different agent to represent me, then I would have had to pay him. I think it was somewhere close to $20,000 for my training to come out of the college to go to the NFL, which with me getting cut from every team, I couldn't afford anything like that. I could barely afford, my next phone bill at that time, but you got to do what you got to do. So at that time I was like, all right, I really put myself in check and said, this is what I really want. This is what I love. This is what I have a passion for. So I'm going to do whatever I can to get there. So at that point, I kind of took being my own agent into my own hands, and I went onto every CFL website and looked through their about me, their contact information, and emailed every single team, sent a phone call to every single team, send them all my highlights. 2 teams ended up responding to me, which was Hamilton and Montreal. And Hamilton just happened to have a scout that was in Fort Myers, so I drove about an hour to meet up with legendary Danny McManus, who's a CFL Hall of Famer from Hamilton, and he gave me a tryout. And I'm just thinking, this older guy that's about 45, 50 years old is out here throwing me the ball. Like, is this going to be serious? But I gave my all, and I went hard, and eventually that turned into my opportunity to play in the CFL and go up there and make impact. So I never gave up on myself, and I kept pounding and pounding away, and eventually that rock broke and there's a diamond inside.
Nice. I like it. One of the other questions here is also, I think, a good one. We've got a good audience sending in some great questions, but how, we've been talking a lot about sort of dealing with individual failure and individual mindsets, but we're all part of organizations as well, and we can do the best we can in some cases, and still, the team doesn't win the Grey Cup. We don't hit all of the goals that we're aiming for. So how do you, and sometimes worse than that, sometimes you lose a lot of games every season. So how do you rally from that kind of organizational failure, and maybe also talk about some of the organizational successes you've been part of and how they've, maybe what some of the keys were to really making that happen?
Yeah, and actually, I saw one of the other questions on there was a lot about goal setting and what do we do for fun. And to be honest, working out and playing football and studying and doing my mental training is fun for me. But along with goal setting is time management. And if you're able to time manage yourself really well, you have plenty of time for fun. My wife and I watched The Bachelor together, and we go on family walks, and we go on family trips, and those things can happen, and I can have that weight off my shoulders that I know I've done everything I need to do for my team by time managing well and being able to put in the work, going to bed early, having discipline. And that kind of goes in with the question you just asked, and that's why I wanted to kind of approach it that way. Was organizational success comes from discipline, from great time management, from locking in and doing the right things, and bouncing back from failures. In 2018, we lost in the Grey Cup, and that drove me. And like Greg talked about earlier, is looking at failures and things that have happened to you is actually reframing it. It hasn't happened to me, it's happened for me. And so anything that's happened to me, it's happened for me. That means I can use this as a springboard and bounce back even stronger and become better and learn from what had just happened to me and be able to kind of trudge forward and become a better version of myself. And like we've talked about, is who I'm becoming. And as a team, it's who we are becoming. So if we lost 2 straight, it's not the fact of that we just lost 2 straight. It's now, who are we becoming? How are we going to frame this? How are we going to see this? Are we going to band together? Or are we going to start pointing the finger and seeing who's to blame for the losses? And so if you can frame things in a positive way, have a great attitude, and realize that who you're becoming and who we are becoming is more important than the outcome, then I think you're always going to look back at the scoreboard at the end of the day and like your result.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And yeah, I think there's a, it's really easy to point fingers in those situations where you've maybe done everything you can do and still things aren't going your way. But it takes us back to the beginning of the conversation when you're talking about your equation of E plus R and really focusing on that R, right? Not worrying so much about all the negative things, but focus on how can you best respond to that situation.
Yeah.
Anything, Greg, there you'd want to add on that one? We do have a couple.
Yeah, I've been blessed to be in great organizations. 5 Grey Cups on 7 years, and every year making the playoffs for each team. And I think one of the things that really sticks with me from every single team was the change from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And I think that's something that you have to embrace. That kind of went along with one of my answers earlier was, embracing change, and whether that's location, whether that's your mentality, whether it's physical, that you're going to have to change because it's inevitable. And that's one of the things with the organizations was we changed from the first couple weeks, first couple months towards where we were to the end of the year, where it talks about, how the hard work was fun for him, and how do we have fun? You know how many times we work so hard on the field and we're sweat and dog tired, and then we get back into the locker room and we're having a blast playing ping pong with each other because we're just embracing the culture and everybody's coming together and we're having a lot of fun together. What book was that? Black Stretchy Pants, I think. Chip Wilson, Lululemon. He's an Alberta guy, right?
They're BC, but close. Yeah.
He went to school in Alberta, I believe.
He did. He was U of A. Yeah, he's U of A alum.
So he hits on that in his book. Is like a lot of his success was making sure that the workers in his business were goal oriented and they worked together, and the environment that they created was supportive. And I think that's a huge success for all the teams that I have been on. Is everybody was supportive of each other, and that took my game to a whole new level. Around my fifth year when I got to Ottawa, a lot of the coaches preached on playing for the guys around you, not just for yourself. And I think when you're one-dimensional as a football player and you're so caught up on your own success at first, you're only worried about yourself, and your head's down and you're just grinding, which is great to get to where you want to go. But at the same time, you have to look up sometimes and look at the people around you and see who's grinding with you. And when you're in an organization, or a business for that matter, you have to look around those guys that are next to you, that are grinding with you, and make sure you play for them too. Because I think that's what took my game to the next level, is when I started drawing back a little bit and realizing, all right, well, this guy's last year that he's probably going to play. This is his first Grey Cup he's ever been to. So I'm going to give my all, and I'm going to go out here and I'm going to put myself on the line because I know how hard that guy works and how much he sacrifices. So I'm going to go out there and I'm going to play for that guy too.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, so we have time for one more question. There's a lot of good questions up here, so we won't get to all of them. But this is what I want to ask, given that this is, we have a lot of university students on the line. And one of the questions that came up was, how does your university or college education factor into what the two of you plan to do post-football? So, and maybe you can just speak generally, if you like, about your education and what it's meant to you.
So for me, unfortunately, I was a math degree, but I plan on coaching football and going in that route. But math has taught me a lot about angles and those sorts of things, and it's taught me obviously how to work hard to get my education. And there was actually another question on there that I saw that I really liked. It was about being too optimistic, and I really like that because it was talking about, like, at what point do you go the other way with it? And I'll just answer that quickly. Is there's optimistic, there's pessimistic, and there's realistic. And to me, if there's traffic on the way to work every day, as an optimist, I'd say, like, there's not going to be traffic today, but that doesn't change the fact that there will be traffic. If I'm a pessimist, I'm going to say the traffic's too much, I'm just not going to work today. The realist would say, I'm going to go, and if traffic is in the way, that's just a price I'm going to be willing to have to pay. And I know that's kind of a lame example, but at the same time, it's just whatever you're going through, you have to realize, is it worth what I'm trying to get done? And to me, that's really where I'm at with it. And to me, it's, just being realistic and saying, whatever I'm going through, that's the price I'm willing to pay to get this done. But yeah, to answer your question, sorry, I just didn't have a great answer for it because I was a math major, but I'm going to be in football because I just love what the game has taught me. And I want to be able to teach the lessons that I've learned to the next generation and be able to mentor and show other people how to love other people and be a good next generation is, just really what I'm really about.
Yeah, well, you seem like you've built up, like I was saying earlier, you could write a book. I think you've built up the knowledge base to be a great coach and motivator. So that wouldn't surprise me at all. How about you, Greg?
Yeah, it's criminal justice, so it's not really gonna relate too much with that either. But I think it definitely did teach me the habits of studying, and especially when you have those exams. And I mean, you'd be surprised about how thick the books and the playbooks are that we have to study every week. We'll have a game plan with 115 pages of plays, and we have to memorize half of them for each week. And then the next week, you just have to discard that information and start learning something new that's going to maybe adapt a little bit, but it's definitely going to be different. So memorization and definitely just the work ethic of, being able to study and making sure, because, you're always going to have that. You're always going to have to study, whether it's for your actual job or whether you're doing it to make yourself a better person. I think I was a little bit naive when I was younger too. And, I kind of wanted to shy away from doing those things. But I think the older you get and the more in depth you get into your profession, the more you realize how much value those things have.
Yeah, well, and you guys are in good company. I think the majority of people don't end up in exactly the same field that they went to university to study. But like you both said, a lot of the skills you learn while you're there are valuable in all kinds of different areas. Okay, so the last thing that they've asked me to run you guys through is what they're calling a lightning round. So I'm going to ask some questions. Don't think too much about it and just give me a quick answer. That's right. Yeah, shake it off. Get ready for the lightning round. Okay, the first one, pretty easy one. What pump up song do you listen to before a game?
I only listen to instrumentals. I don't listen to words. So I just find a good beat, listen to the instrumental.
Oh,
Interesting.
two that I always listen to are "Go Get Her" by Lil Wayne and "In the Air Tonight" Phil Collins.
Oh, some old school.
I always listen to both of those.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Favorite post game meal?
I just
Mine's
check
boring.
them.
Mine's boring because I'm a healthy eater. Mine's just like sushi, chicken, vegetables.
Nice.
My wife's
That's what we
balsamic
want to hear.
chicken, fire.
That's what we want to hear from our quarterback, right? It's just all dedication all the time.
It's
Oh,
usually
you're great.
whatever I can get my hands on immediately, but I could go for a good chicken parmesan, and if anybody has some cheesecake, that's going down too.
It's my weakness. I hear you.
If you guys didn't play football, what would you do?
I wish I could go back in time and go to school to be a chiropractor.
Probably join the circus. I don't know.
Greg's
Football's
gonna be
what
an
you want to
ultra
do.
marathoner. He's running
Yeah,
100 miles in a month.
100
so-
miles.
Yeah, I definitely want to. That's on my bucket list for sure. Is do an Ironman one day.
Cool. Good for you. So I won't be joining you in that, but I'll be cheering you on. So do you guys have a role model? One role model that pops to mind?
For me, it's always been my parents and Jesus Christ. Those have kind of been my role models, and my parents have always been really, really loving and taught me the right way and raised me to be a good young man, the best they knew how. And they've almost lost their lives a couple of times. So I'm a kid I'm a mama's boy, and I really appreciate my parents.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely the work ethic and that hard work mentality and doing things right the first time. I got that from my dad, and that's something that's probably gonna live with me forever. He's someone that had a rough upbringing and came from nothing, living on the streets to creating his own business and raising me in a manner that I'll try to achieve anything I can through hard work. So I definitely respect him a lot too.
Fantastic. Okay, last one. If you could replay a fun or deep or big moment from your life, what moment would you choose?
Go ahead, Greg. I need to think.
That's a tough one. Yeah.
Oh man, there's so many. I mean, Grey Cup victory with Trev, that picture we have holding the trophy and embracing it. I mean, that's a big one. I think one of the defining moments is probably that one back there, though. That's that 2nd and 25 in Ottawa. That kind of led us over at Hamilton. That was actually, as I hit on earlier, they benched me, and then I just put my nose down and made sure that I was still working on my craft and making sure that I was still going to be a great player when I did get the opportunity again. If I did get the opportunity, which you never really know in that moment, you just kind of try to prepare the right way. And I finally got that opportunity, and that was the next year when I was in Ottawa. And a team that kind of gave up on me and let me go, and then I'm playing for a team that believed in me and supported me and let me get my opportunity, and to send Ottawa to the first Grey Cup in, was it 30 years? That was definitely one of those moments of my playing career that is can never forget.
Yeah, and just
Awesome.
to piggyback off of Greg, I remember sitting in my living room. I had my hands behind my head, like I could not believe what happened there. And like I had the chills watching it, hearing the roar of the crowd, and it kind of even gives me chills to think about that moment and the play that Greg made there. But for me, there's just too many to name one, with Grey Cups, with state championships in high school, with, being there, hugging my parents, when I signed an NFL contract, hugging my mom and dad when I signed my CFL contract. Those sorts of things are always just moments that pop to mind. But I'm just trying to think of the next big moment, and hoisting the Grey Cup and hand it off to Greg and Brock and Coach E and all the guys on the team. And that's the moment I look to next.
Awesome. That was fantastic, guys. I mean, I was a big fan before we had this conversation. I'm a bigger fan now. I can't wait to see the season kick off. But we've run out of time. We could keep talking, but we're running out of time. So I'm going to turn it over to Sue. And thank you very much again for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Wow, this was fantastic. As I sit here by myself working from home, I've enjoyed many smiles and lots of chuckles. You guys have been phenomenal. Thank you so much for joining us here and giving us a glimpse into your lives and how you've handled failure and bounced back. Thank you to our attendees who stuck with us today. I hope you really enjoyed the event. With so many options available for virtual events, we're really glad you chose to spend your lunch hour with us. Tomorrow we'll be sending a survey via email to gather your feedback, and we hope that you share your direct and honest feedback on what we can do to improve the next time around. We'll also include a recording of today's discussion, so please feel free to share that with your friends and colleagues. And thanks again. It was really great. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.